Have you ever promised yourself, I'll start tomorrow? Then tomorrow became next week. And somehow, that important task is still sitting there, untouched? Maybe you've blamed yourself for being lazy. Maybe you've told yourself you just need more motivation. But what if that's not the real problem? What if procrastination isn't a time management problem at all? What if it's actually a psychological survival strategy? Because here's something surprising. Your brain isn't designed to help you achieve your goals. It's designed to keep you safe. And sometimes, those two things are completely different. The moment your brain senses discomfort, uncertainty, or the possibility of failure, it starts looking for an escape. Suddenly, checking your phone feels urgent. Cleaning your room feels productive. Watching just one more video somehow becomes the most important thing in the world. Not because you're lazy, but because your brain has quietly convinced you that avoiding discomfort is more important than making progress. And the scary part? Most people never realize this is happening. They spend years believing they're simply undisciplined, when they're actually following patterns their brain has repeated thousands of times. The good news is, once you understand why your brain keeps delaying things, you can finally stop fighting yourself and start working with your brain instead of against it. Let's begin with the biggest myth about procrastination. Most people think procrastination happens because they don't care enough. But think about the last thing you procrastinated. Was it something meaningless? Probably not. In fact, the tasks we delay the most are often the ones that matter the most. Applying for a better job, starting a business, writing a book, going back to school, having an uncomfortable conversation. These aren't unimportant tasks. They're emotionally important. And that's exactly why your brain treats them as threats. This is where psychology changes everything. Your brain doesn't ask, will this help me succeed? Instead, it asks, could this make me uncomfortable? If the answer is yes, your brain immediately starts searching for something that feels easier, something familiar, something rewarding, something that gives you instant relief. That's why scrolling social media feels so irresistible. It's predictable, it's easy, and it gives your brain tiny bursts of dopamine without any emotional risk. Meanwhile, the meaningful task sitting on your desk feels uncertain. It might expose your weaknesses. It might not turn out the way you hope. It might even make you question your abilities. So your brain quietly says, let's do that later. Not forever. Just later. But every time you listen to that voice, your brain learns something. It learns that avoidance works. It learns that escaping discomfort feels rewarding. And little by little, procrastination becomes a habit. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is getting better at protecting you from temporary discomfort. The problem is, the discomfort never actually disappears. It simply waits for you, usually with even more stress, more guilt, and less time. That's why procrastination feels like a trap. It gives you relief today, but creates anxiety tomorrow. And the longer this cycle repeats, the stronger it becomes. So why does your brain keep choosing distractions, even when you know they're hurting your future? The answer lies in something your brain craves every single day: dopamine. Most people think dopamine is the feel-good chemical, but that's only part of the story. Dopamine is actually about anticipation. It pushes you toward whatever promises an immediate reward. And in today's world, immediate rewards are everywhere. One notification, one text message, one funny video, one quick scroll through social media. Each one gives your brain a tiny hit of satisfaction. No effort, no uncertainty, no emotional risk. Compared to that, working on a difficult project feels painfully slow. The reward is far away. Your brain has to invest energy now for something it may not receive until weeks, or even months later. And your brain hates uncertainty. This is why procrastination isn't simply choosing fun over work. It's choosing certainty over uncertainty. Your brain would rather enjoy a guaranteed small reward than chase a bigger reward that isn't guaranteed. Think of it like this. Imagine you're standing at a crossroads. On one side, there's a button that gives you a tiny reward instantly. On the other side, there's a locked treasure chest. It might contain something incredible, but you have to work for hours before you can even open it. Most brains naturally reach for the button, not because they're irrational, but because they've evolved to value immediate survival over distant success. Thousands of years ago, this helped humans stay alive. Today, it keeps us endlessly refreshing our phones. Technology didn't create procrastination. It simply learned how to take advantage of it. Every swipe, every notification, every endless feed is competing directly with your long-term goals. And unless you understand what's happening, your brain will keep choosing the easier reward. Now here's another surprising reason people procrastinate. Perfectionism. Most people imagine procrastinators as careless people, but many procrastinators actually care too much. They don't delay because they don't want success. They delay because they desperately want everything to be perfect. They wait for the perfect mood, the perfect idea, the perfect plan, the perfect time. But perfection is a moving target. No matter how prepared you become, your brain keeps finding another reason to wait. I need more research. I'll start on Monday. I'm not ready yet. Sound familiar? Those thoughts feel logical, but they're often just fear wearing a smarter disguise. Because underneath perfectionism, there's usually one powerful emotion. Fear. Fear of failing. Fear of being judged. Fear of looking inexperienced. Fear that your best effort won't be enough. So instead of risking failure, your brain chooses delay. Because as long as you haven't started, your potential still feels safe. Once you begin, your work becomes real. And real work can be criticized. That's why starting often feels harder than actually doing the task. The hardest moment isn't the work itself. It's crossing the invisible line between thinking and taking action. The moment you begin, your brain often realizes, this isn't nearly as bad as I imagined. But until that first step happens, fear has complete control. And that's exactly how procrastination quietly steals weeks, months, sometimes even years from people's lives. So, if procrastination isn't caused by laziness, and it isn't solved by waiting for motivation, what actually works? The answer is surprisingly simple. You don't need to convince your brain to love difficult work. You only need to convince it that starting is safe. Because your brain almost always exaggerates the discomfort before you begin. But once you take the first small step, something interesting happens. The fear starts to shrink. Psychologists call this action reducing emotional resistance. In simple words, your brain stops imagining the task and starts experiencing it. And reality is almost always less frightening than imagination. That's why successful people don't rely on motivation every day. They rely on systems. Instead of asking, do I feel motivated? They ask, what's the smallest action I can take right now? Not finish the project. Not write the entire report. Just open the document. Write one sentence. Read one page. Spend 2 minutes. It sounds almost too simple. But those tiny actions send your brain an important message. This task isn't dangerous. And every time your brain receives that message, the emotional resistance becomes a little weaker. Eventually, starting becomes normal. That's how new habits are built. Not through giant bursts of motivation, but through small actions repeated consistently. There's another powerful shift that changes everything. Stop trying to be perfect. Aim to be consistent instead. Perfection asks, can I do this flawlessly? Consistency asks, can I show up today? One question creates pressure. The other creates progress. And progress, no matter how small, builds confidence. Confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence comes because of action. Every small promise you keep to yourself strengthens your trust in yourself. Every time you start, even when you don't feel like it, you're teaching your brain a completely new pattern. A pattern where discomfort is temporary, but progress is permanent. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I'll do it later, pause for just a moment. Ask yourself one simple question. Am I avoiding this because it's impossible? Or because it feels uncomfortable? That single question can completely change the way you see procrastination. Because most of the time, the obstacle isn't the task. It's the story your brain is telling you about the task. And remember, your future isn't shaped by the big plans you make. It's shaped by the small actions you repeat every single day. The person you become next year depends far more on what you start today than on what you keep postponing until tomorrow. So don't wait until you feel ready. Start before you're ready. Because action creates clarity. Action creates confidence. And action slowly rewires the brain that once held you back. If you found this video helpful, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more psychology insights that help you understand your mind and take control of your life. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.